Buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? It's Jono Brake here with another round of Monday MythCheck, and I hope I didn't offend my Latino friends with my poor attempt at Spanish. But here I am today in Colombia. I'm in Villa de Leyva. Again, probably really bad pronunciation. And I want to talk to you today about this idea that good leadership is universal. Okay, so it's one of the challenges that we have is we think that just my leadership style or the things that I do or how I operate will just work anywhere. And it's not necessarily the case. So when we think about this, if you're a great leader, your style will resonate with any team anywhere in the world. And I've traveled to a lot of countries now. As I said, today I'm in Colombia, and I've been to a few South American countries now. And worked with a lot of folks from South America, and there are different leadership styles. There's different ways that they do things. There's different conversations that they have. So let's look at a couple of things, a couple of myths in terms of just thinking that my leadership style is universal. Number one is culture filters everything. So in a place like Colombia, leadership blends hierarchy and relational warmth. The people here are absolutely beautiful, but there is a hierarchy. There is a definite structure in the way they organize their society, and a purely directive or flat style of leadership kind of misses both of them. Okay, so if you're trying to encourage that, now I can't speak for what the next generation is doing, but it's certainly what we observe right now, and even watching the younger generation, the way they honor leadership, the way they honor their parents, the way they honor their bosses, very, very important. So something to think about there. Emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, EQ, does not equal cultural quotient, cultural intelligence, okay? So just because I've got high emotional intelligence doesn't mean that it's going to be the same outcome in a different culture, okay? So we've got to be very aware of that. So things like the way language comes out, the way we use body language, the way we use inflections in our words, how we come across. Sometimes it can seem like you can get a cold reaction, but it's actually just a normal and actually quite friendly when you really dive into it. So just something to think about there. Just watch those emotional reactions and don't just assume just because that's what you do, that's what you're getting. Okay. The third one is that silence, it means different things in lots of cultures. You know, in our culture in the US or in Australia, silence can be very threatening, and we like to talk, we like to fill the space, and but often silence in meetings in a cultural context can also mean respect and listening and taking things in. Sometimes they're very slow to respond, the way they think through things, and so we've got to be careful that just because somebody is quiet, now this can play across different behavioral types in our own cultures as well. Just because somebody is quiet doesn't mean they're disengaged. It might be that they're reflecting. One of the things I talk about in behavioral in the behavioral space is this idea of the thinker versus the talker. So even in US culture or in Australian culture, you know, we have people who like to reflect and like to take time before they respond. So allow for silence. Silence is very, very important. And don't just assume they're disengaged. Obviously ask questions as you go along. So Villa de Leyva is a really interesting city. It's 400 or 500 years old. The original peoples here, they ran a very complex trade, very complex structure of hierarchy and the way they did things. When the Spanish came through here, they kept some of that. But obviously the Spanish, like any colonials, they deeply impacted the indigenous cultures. And so there was some of that merging of cultures. Today, obviously, if it all happened today, I guess we'd be a lot more sensitive to these changes. And but what we're seeing today is a revival of some of the traditional cultures here, which is very exciting to see. So I just want to start to think about this idea that just because as a great leader, what I do, how I operate works where I am doesn't mean it's universal, okay? So what's a great action you can take out of all of this? Well, what I want you to think about over this next time in your next interactions, particularly cross-cultural ones, I want you to think about, as a leader, how are you going to listen? How are you going to truly listen to what they're saying? I want you to take action on this idea. Now, this isn't just a cross-cultural issue. This can be an issue just in the office. Maybe you're not a very good listener. Maybe you don't know how to listen to your people. But at the end of the day, I want you to think of what is a structure for you to truly listen. What questions can you ask them in terms of how are you doing? How are you performing? Is what you're saying, is the process you're developing making sense? Does your leadership style work? Again, this could be just an issue across the culture of an office, let alone cross-cultural boundaries and other countries, but very important in that space. If you feel like you're not getting the right engagement from your folks, then it's time to stop and listen, and truly listen. Don't defend yourself, don't argue with them, just listen and learn and find ways to improve how you lead. Anyway, that's Monday Myth Check for this week.